Hello, everyone. So this is one of those interviews in English, and don't panic. It's really easy to switch on the subtitles, so you will have the interview translated directly on YouTube with the subtitles. So I'm going to lead you on this process. It's really simple. You go to the little wheel down there, and then you click on it, and then on the parameters, then you put the automatic translation and you put your language. So this would be French probably, and then you will have the interview with the French subtitles. So it's not perfect, but overall you will have a general idea of, well, the interview subtitles in French. Hello, Debbie. I'm very, very happy to welcome you to this online summit about the healing horse and the mediating horses. And I wanted to begin with a quote of one of your books,
Oh, okay.
Honey's Girl, Parables. And the quote goes, if everything around seems dark, look again, because you may be the light.
Mm.
That's a quote from the Arabian writer Rumi.
Mhm.
And Debbie, so your philosophy centers around the belief that there is power within us, and there is some light within us to realize our purpose and potential. And you are a certified transformational presence coach. Maybe you'll tell us in a few words what it means,
Mhm.
that support self-illumination and turning wounds into wisdom. And so you had a career in the U.S. as a nurse,
Mhm.
and then you left your home in the U.S. to live almost 50 years in Costa Rica. And as I understand, you have been going back to the US now to give conferences, lectures, and also working as an equine practitioner. So it's a great honor to have you at this online summit, and maybe a few words about who you are now, and then after that we will be talking about those cards that you propose.
Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction, Sylvan. It's nice to be here. Nice to be able to speak to such a beautiful gathering in this forum that is gifted to us. This technology has been gifted to us over the years, which is actually kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, after we moved back to the United States in 2020 and I tried to decide, well, what is next for me? What wants to happen next? And that's kind of, I guess, the start of my journey. I had been coaching with Alan Seal, and that's his main question is what wants to happen. And I'm, really from the framework of what do I need to do? What should I be doing? But instead, this coaching framework allows us to listen to what wants to happen and then step into that, which is very different. And he works when I went through the coaching program with him, with the Center for Transformational Presence is it's really founded in quantum physics.
In quantum
So
physics, okay.
quantum physics, which yeah, it seems
How's
kind of
that?
funny, but that's where the manifestation comes from, is the quantum field.
Sure. Yeah.
So we live in the space of waves and particles, right? And the particles are what come out of the field to create the these solid forms that we see and that we live in. And so someone will have the idea that you have sometime in your life, and someone's going to pull it out of the field and create it if that's for the benefit of all, especially if that's for the benefit of all.
Ah, meaning that everything is kind of interconnected, and
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
also means that what I'm doing and what I'm thinking has an action on everything. Is that a consequence of that, or?
Well, theoretically, yes, everything we do, everything we think has a consequence. It's the Hermetic principle, which we'll be talking about later, of cause and effect. And it also relates to the principle, the other Hermetic principle, which is mentalism, which we are one big cosmic mind. So we start thinking about that as we have science and philosophy kind of connecting there in that principle of mentalism.
Uh-huh.
And then becomes, what is my responsibility to that? Well, if we step into the responsibility without asking, what is my responsibility? That it's kind of backwards. And so this form of taking a look, and we're going to be deconstructing the topic
Yes,
and to
yes.
look at it through a new perspective.
I understand that this hermetic principle of mentalism um, sees the consciousness as the primary cause, and the physical aspect is a secondary cause, and it's kind of opposite to the scientific point of view that says that's the brain is kind of secreting the thought, producing the thought, and yeah. And so, how did you evolve in those two opposite way of seeing the world?
Well, I'm from medical, being a nurse, an ICU nurse especially, for many years, too many years that I want to talk about. But anyway, when we're in, I I don't know why. I think I've worked other areas too, but I think especially in the ICU kind of place, and I worked neonatal and pediatric ICU.
Mm.
It's very, it's actually very scientific,
It is, yes.
and so we're the primary focus is to do no harm. So that keeps us in the thing that we know for sure, in things that we know for sure. And so for me, when I quit nursing and moved to Costa Rica, I started working with horses. Well, I didn't really the horses started to guide me out of that mindset, let me say.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and I started to like I it was a funny thing that happened is one of our guests came to our hotel there. I didn't know who she was, and she said she was called to give me this book when she meditated before she came to visit our hotel. I didn't even know her. She was just a regular person. And when she was checking out, she hands me this book, and it was Riding Between the Worlds by Linda Kohanov.
Oh,
And I never heard of her. I didn't know anything about horses before I came to Costa Rica. The only thing I knew about horses was that if our car was broken down there, our Jeep, we could use the horse to go to the store. I mean, that was about it.
all right.
Okay, because we were out in the sticks. And so, and then the horses started providing service by taking people to this waterfall. And then eventually the horses were just like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm like, that's your job. You need to go. You're like the car. You go from point A to point B.
So you had a tourist that
Tourists,
was
right.
doing
Riding the horses.
tourist tours from the hotel to the waterfall in the jungle.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah. And so everyone, when you're the charge nurse of ICU, everybody has your job, you do your job, and then you punch out at the end of the day and you go home. But the horses were just like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm not doing that anymore.
Okay.
And so they would have to go back into training all the time, right? Well, that was their behavior. We always say, one of my teachers too, Shelley Rosenberg, she always says misbehavior is a form of communication. That's the biggest thing. When the horse is misbehaving, that's it. There's something going on in the relationship. So right about all the same time, there's a lot of things, other things happening too. But then this girl, Chris, she hands me the book, Riding Between the Worlds, and I read it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got like totally wrong. It kind of blew me away. And because I think because we were in the jungle, I was becoming so connected to Earth in a different way as a human. Like I was becoming a Earthling, I think, when I was in Costa Rica. And anyway, and so one day, I was working with a family. It was two parents and their kid that was about 9 or 10 years old, and we were working in this little arena up in the jungle with this horse Dorado. And this is when I really knew that this co-quantum field thing is exactly something that we just don't really understand. So we had this, I'd been working with this family for 3 days up in this arena, and there was this big giant bee, like as big as a ping pong ball, huge bee, jungle bee, and they live in colonies of only 10. And oftentimes you find them in a post or something like that. They're not aggressive, but if they do sting, it really hurts, because if they sting you, they lose 10% of their colony. Well, this bee had been like buzzing around me and this family working with Dorado and this was the third day. And we're sitting in this circle, standing in the circle, basically in the arena. Dorado's loose. And this bee comes in the circle again. He's like buzzing around weird. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to smack it and kill it. And because I didn't want it to sting the kid or the family, because that's,
Sure.
yeah. And
Everything. Yes.
they might have been from France. I don't know. But
Maybe.
anyway, because there are people came from all over the world. But I went to go and smack that bee down on the ground, and Dorado steps in front of me, in between me and the bee, and he grabs the bee by his forehead, and he starts to bounce the bee on his forehead, bing, 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 and trots to the other side of the arena and
Oh.
bounced the bee into the forest. And then he came back and stood in the circle with us.
Oh,
And
brilliant.
he was just staring at me, and I'm like, what? Thank you for saving us from the bee. And the parents, I'm like, did you see that? And the kid's like, Dorado saved us from the bee. But then the bee kept, or the not the bee, the Dorado kept staring at me, and I'm like, oh, thank you for saving the bee from me.
Yeah.
And then he lowered his head and started licking and chewing and was like, now you got it. And I was just like, what in the heck is going on here?
Yes.
And that's when I think my whole like science, what I know and I thought I knew, completely disappeared from my life.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, and that's the foundation actually of the book Pony Squirrels Parables, is from
Yeah.
that, from those all the lessons like that I learned from the horses or through the horses.
Yeah.
Let's see, when the quantum field shows up, I think, or something bigger than us is showing up through those horses.
Yeah. Many of us have been taught by the horses.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
So
yeah. And so, as I understand, you've been writing this beautiful deck of cards,
thank
and
you.
so the name is Integrate, Align, and Evolve. I think it's 71 cards.
I think so. I don't know.
Yes.
I think there'll be the next edition has a few more
Okay.
already. Yeah, because
And
they're evolving. They evolve as I learn more things too, I think. Yeah.
probably.
hmm
And
Yeah.
I have to say, I love cards and card decks. And of course, there is this card deck about horses from Linda, The Way of the
Yes.
Horse.
Uh-huh.
There is a new edition now, and I'm using it all the time in
hmm
workshops. But when you told me about these cards that you wrote, yeah, it was fascinating. So,
hmm Well, they can't, it was one of the things that wanted to happen. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I just finished my book and that's so much
Okay.
editing and I still find mistakes and things, but, and there's so much editing. And then I knew these cards were going to be harder than writing a book for sure, because
Okay.
yeah. So, but let's go. I have I can describe them a little bit first and then
Yes,
I
sure.
think you're going to be a guinea pig, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm eager to be a guinea pig,
Okay.
to go through the process. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I have the cards in front of
Yeah.
me,
Okay.
and I have to switch my camera. So, yeah.
So would you like me to, I have a little presentation. I can explain the categories of the cards and then we can move into the demonstration. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so that's your screen. Perfect. Yeah.
I'm going to have to check this. Okay. So these, I call these integration cards, and they help us, like Sylvain said, illuminate the path within us. And this is an overview of the categories of the cards. And these cards there's 6 categories. There's integrate, the
Yeah.
emotion cards, her dynamics, dualities, archetypes, and hermetic principles, which we touched on just a little bit. And I developed these cards from the heart of my equine coaching practice and wanted to have something that my clients could take away with them and help create a common language between us. And they really pull together the most valuable tools that I use with my clients, tools and concepts and overall concepts. And they're specifically designed to guide us toward realizing the energy and the light that innately exists within us, as the Rumi quote we talked about earlier
Oh,
that
yeah.
you quoted. Thank you. And they provide a coaching algorithm that deconstructs challenges that we may have into wisdom and potential and a path forward. And they're also just encouraged just to create self-introspection. We don't have to use the cards in the algorithm. You can pull out what emotion am I having and pull out the emotion deck and take a look at it.
Mm.
So I'll go through each of the categories so everyone's familiar with the concepts.
Yeah.
First, the integrate cards this is an example of one of the integrate cards, and it takes you through the process step by step, what to do. And it's this coaching algorithm based on the 3 fundamental questions and the DISCO model, which are part of the Center for Transformational Presence coaching framework.
Yes.
And it's a very step-by-step process, deconstructing a topic, as I said, and bringing the elements of the topic into perspective.
Yes. Disco is drama, information, situation, choice, opportunity.
Exactly, exactly. And it helps to guide us into this transformative place and leading to insights and realizations and shifts a challenge or an issue into wisdom, purpose, and potential. And also, lastly, but it initiates actions. So we do all of these things in the process before we actually do anything. And this actually prompts a commitment to the potential and gives a framework or almost guidelines around that potential in order to act in a way that will be successful.
Okay.
And some of these concepts, I want to just mention my teacher again, Alan Seal. He's the founder of the Center for Transformational Presence. So, and then, so we have the emotion cards. This is an example of the emotion card, vulnerability. That's a big one that's always coming up for everyone when we're working with horses. And the card consists of the main topic of the card or the main part of the emotion. And also we need to look at what are the benefits of this emotion, although it feels like a bad emotion, but what benefits does it bring me when I process through this emotion? Emotions are universal language, transcending species, cultures, and are this universal form of communication.
Oh, yeah. It
We
was
know.
proven now by a French scientist that horses not only can feel emotions, but can understand what emotion is caused by something in another person, actually.
Really?
It was
Wow. Oh, I think that,
demonstrated by
uh-huh.
published, actually.
Is it translated into English yet?
I don't know.
Not sure. Yeah.
Probably, but anyway, it's something now
Mm-hmm.
scientifically proven, which is good.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we knew that all along anyway, didn't
Oh
we?
yes.
Okay. So when we look at the message behind the emotion, this comes from, of course, working through this is I started to learn this through the Eponicity model of EFL with Linda Kohanov. This message tells us there's meaning behind the feeling that I have. And discovering this meaning offers insights to our state of being. And what, like when I was raised in Midwest in Minnesota, emotion had no place in our house. The less emotional you were, the better kid you were, right? So that was something that was a challenge for me initially. And then the message of the emotion leads us to the question, and this often challenges our old way of seeing and being in the world and our interactions with others. And if we don't pay attention to the emotion, what happens is it intensifies and it keeps intensifying. Some people believe even to the point where you have physical illness from that because you haven't processed old emotion. And also when you work with the emotions, sometimes, for example, rage and anger feel the same. So if you're very angry about something, maybe an anger at its core is only a boundary violation. And if you're like, well, I don't really feel like I had a boundary violation, it's probably an intensification of vulnerability. So that's always one of the things that needs to be kept in mind when you're working through the emotion cards. And like I said, these concepts are supported by Ponequest and also the work of Carla McLaren, who is a psychologist.
Yeah.
And other ideas that I had. So, okay, the next category is the herd dynamics. And this is an example of one of those. These are also based on some of them are based on Linda's herd role.
Yeah, 5 roles of the master
Master
herder.
herder, yeah. And so we have the sentinel, for example, what it is. It's the energy behind what's happening, the watcher, the alarm system, what's going on. This is the energy behind it. And then there's an overview of the characteristics and benefits, and then also the challenges of that role if we're not using the right energy for the right purpose.
Yeah.
And this is nature's framework. So it's not anything new. It's in nature when you look at herds of animals, especially prey animals, animals of prey, predators. We are predators because, eyes in the front made to hunt, eyes on the side made to hide. So sometimes it's hard for us to wrap our head around the way prey animals see and perceive the world. But I think that helps bring our predatory nature into balance by doing this.
And I understand predator is one of the roles of the
Yes,
dynamic. Right.
it is because predator, when used correctly, is is essential for nature. Is essential for us to step into the predator role because it helps maintain the balance of the whole. But in human society, what's happened is uh, the we've misused the predator role so much. That's a whole topic in itself. We won't have to talk about that. But we don't need to shy away from the predator energy because in a healthy way, that's what it's there for. You see two stallions in the wild, they're fighting each other. That's predatory energy. When the horse uses their front feet, that's mostly always predatory.
Right.
But anyway, okay, so this is a system to understand intent, using the right energy for the right task at hand. Because if we're using the wrong energy, we're wasting energy.
Yes.
And learning to use all of these dynamics together creates this seamless flow, which is an essential life skill. Linda calls it the master herder. And then I talked about the challenges when often when we're overemphasizing in one role, we're avoiding using another role.
Yeah.
And as when we're working with horses, using this framework is beneficial because we can work with the horses leading a horse while we're in the sentinel role. And then I'm looking for danger. I'm the sentinel looking for danger. And so how does your horse help you be the sentinel? You know, if we're setting a boundary with the horse, asking it to back up in the dominant role, we can really embrace the right role for the right energy, and the horse can teach us how to do that when we're on or when we're off.
I can say that I was not a very dominant person, and I had to work with a very dominant horse, and that really taught me what is the meaning of dominance, and it was, yeah, it was a real teaching, I would say.
Uh-huh. I'm going to turn it's cold here for the first time. The heat just kicked in. I'm going to turn it off because I don't know if you can hear it on the thing. Just a second.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up the sound. Okay. So, all right. So and like I said, again, this is from the PonaQuest founder, Linda Kohanov, are some of these characteristics.
Okay.
And the next category is dualities.
Yeah.
And so dualities are two ends of a spectrum, and they're two parts of a whole. If you think of it like one cannot exist without the other, two sides of a coin. We have the head and the tail, night and day. We can't only have night and only have day. We have to have both. And so it's exploring these extremes in a non-judgmental way that can really provide us a lot of information for helping us to change and to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, with light and dark and masculine and feminine, it looks to me a little bit like another of the Hermetic principles.
Yeah, it is a principle of
Oh,
polarities.
okay.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But I took it, taking it one step further into day-to-day life and working, because this is something that comes up so many times working with clients with horses, doesn't it? And I think you mentioned the masculine and feminine is so many of us maybe are in too heavy on one and the masculine, or too heavy in the feminine. And by recognizing if you're too heavy in the feminine energy, which is what are you missing out? What characteristics of the masculine side of yourself can add to your day-to-day life or your existence?
Yes.
And then this approach also, when we look at it this way, I think when you start deconstructing something, you can approach your challenges with some more curiosity about yourself and self-compassion.
Yes.
And the value in aligning is it helps us to live the full spectrum of our evolving identity.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
There is optimism and pessimism.
Yeah, all those things. Yeah. And like the mass or we may be like maybe one day we have to be 100% masculine in the masculine energy.
Yeah.
And then the next day 100% in the feminine. But at the end of the day, if we live this full spectrum and know how to balance in this aligned way, it supports our growth. Okay, and then the archetype cards. Archetype cards actually are pulled out of my book and also from the Center for Transformational Presence, some of their concepts. This is the ambassador archetype. Yeah. And archetypes are a thematic representation of our values and ethics as a human. And this also probably is going to play a role culturally, where we can bring in cultural differences, because how the perception of this archetype is in Spain is going to be different than how it is in New York, and even New York in different parts of the US. Yeah. There's a lot of different cultures. And it brings storytelling into the topic. And this is great when you're working with kids. You can simplify things down as the facilitator. Tell me a story about, give a framework of one of the archetypes, and let's create a story about that and include your horse in that, in the characteristics of that, like parables. And this is a creative way to start solving problems, and guides the user into insightful realizations, shifting perspective from what may feel insurmountable into a challenge instead, a challenge to face. like I think in the book The Alchemist here, this I think the sheep herder, right? He wants to find a way or these riches.
Yes,
And it seems
absolutely.
insurmountable, but he faces the challenge
Yeah.
through the way of storytelling. And they're also symbolic representations um, of of us in being in the world. And I connected each one of these archetypes to our corresponding chakra to help understand, again, at an energetic level, what is the ambassador archetype, for example? The ambassador embodies profound attributes that shape not only individuals' lives, but also influence the collective consciousness.
Okay.
By using all of the other archetypes seamlessly, sounds like the herd dynamics as well. It's a similar kind of concept, reinforcing that capacity that we need to step out of our comfort zones and move into these different ways of seeing the world. And then that chakra is at the top of the head, our crown chakra, which does connect us to the collective consciousness.
Yeah. So there is an energetic aspect to those archetypes, and
Yes, as
so
well.
that connects us
Um,
to the unconscious archetypes of Jung, for instance, the collective
yes. Hmm.
conscious. Is that what you were thinking, or?
Yes, there's, archetypal models are a great way for us to understand so many elements of our psyche.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And some of these archetypes are come from my teacher Ellen Seal, and also from my book.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last is the Hermetic principles, which we have talked about a little bit already. And this is one of the examples of cause and effect. Most people have heard of the principle of cause and effect, which can be distilled right down to choices yield consequences. And and so this is ancestral guidance that offers a philosophical framework for understanding the nature of reality and consciousness.
Oh,
It's been around for a long, long time, like thousands of years as well. We'll have to go into the history of that. People can look that up. And then conceptual ideology. And so it's a means to understand the universe and our world through interconnected laws and the philosophical uh, idea behind them. And it helps us to see our life as a journey, because you think about they think these hermetic principles came from Hermes Trimegatus. I know it's on the card. I don't know how to say that for sure, the last name. And he was seen as a sage that bridging spirituality and philosophy um, in ancient Greek and Egyptian philosophical ideas. So these ideas have been around for so long, and if we take a look at them as a way to look at ourselves through this in this collective way, it helps bring a different perspective into the challenges that we're facing. Um, and
it's a beautiful philosophy, and I heard that in the Middle Age, the first alchemists and the medical doctors at the time, they would use the Hermetic principle to know from observation the medicinal principle of the herbs, actually. Just,
really, oh wow,
yeah, with this principle of correspondence,
uh-huh.
as above, so below, and as below,
Oh,
so above. So, yeah, this kind of,
oh.
it's a
So
beautiful
if the
philosophy.
so if the medicine had the characteristic that the human needed, then that was the
Yes,
medicine to give the human.
yes,
Oh, that's so cool. It's so fascinating, which makes total sense, doesn't it?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
So it's so powerful and
Hmm.
great that
So, are they, this esoteric means hidden, and maybe they're not so hidden.
yes,
So, because they could become a manner to understand our own spirituality and our connection to the natural world that
uh-huh,
shapes our experiences individually and collectively. And there again is the principle of correspondence.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. Principle of correspondence. Yes.
Yeah. So, how does this work with horses? This is my horse Cowboy, one of my people.
Yeah.
And so how do horses support this? Well, I think the audience out there has a great already has an idea about how this can help their practice, but they validate when we become congruent with what wants to surface from the inside into what is on the outside. And the horse will show us that by licking and chewing, lowering their head, those kind of things, or just staring at you until you get it, right?
Yes.
um,
It
and they
wants
and
to be congruent with horses, actually.
yeah. And then they help to magnify, because of the electromagnetic field, we know that element that's asking to be noticed,
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
the magnification. Because if you're sitting there like with these two emotions, here I pulled up two, guilt and disappointment, right? I don't know what it is. Am I disappointed or do I just feel guilty? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then if I'm like feeling guilty, and I've had it happen so many times, right? Oh, yeah, the horse will come and validate that. Or if I pick up the disappointment card, they'll be just like Dorado was and like just staring at me. Yeah, no, it's not that. You have to notice that you feel guilty, right? And they magnify it.
Yes.
Um, and then again, that's confirming the insights that we're realizing. And these are some suggested implications. Different horses being demonstrative while we're working. Um, they're supporting this awareness, aid us in the real-time processing of emotion as information, define and illustrate foundational concepts of humanity.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's always so impressive why the horse doesn't just ignore us when we just sit there and we don't get it, you know.
Yeah.
They don't walk away until we get it. They're so
Yeah.
patient, right?
Yeah. Very true. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Um, and they support our own self-reflection, give some, an outline for us to start there, introspectively guiding the individual or group to new insights, and then in a systematic way lay out a path to realize new perspectives.
Yeah.
I remember I used to do the parent support group in the neonatal ICU, and everyone, when they have a sick baby in the ICU, they're very focused on their own baby, on their own bedside, what's going on. And then they would come into the parent support group and realize everyone is feeling the same thing.
Yes. Of course. Yeah.
And so this way of starting out introspectively, and then they go into the group and they realize this whole new awareness that I'm not alone in this, even though
Mhm.
they're with the people every day. And I think that is by having this common language and a common way to start to look at a situation, we become more connected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be more compassion too, that
right.
other people are suffering, same
Hmm.
kind of things.
Hmm. And they help to create a common language between the practitioner and the client or the group.
Yeah.
And we've already seen that, haven't we already, Sylvain? Because just by at the beginning when we started to work, talking about a few of the Hermetic principles or those that is already starting to create a common language between the two of us.
Yeah.
Hmm. And they offer a manner of expressing issues that may be difficult to put into words. Mhm. And ineffable, that's the word. That's the word for that. And then, and supports the process of integration after in-person sessions. So you can use the cards if you give the deck to your clients and you're doing a Zoom session afterward, you can say, okay, let's pull these cards out again. And you still have this good way to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
They support transformation, supporting the process of turning challenges or vulnerabilities into wisdom or action, and offer an avenue to create flow in stagnated areas in the psyche.
Oh yeah. I believe very much in the horse as a factor of moving, actually, putting some
Yes.
movement, and in many creation stories of the horse, well, the horse
Um,
is making things move, actually. So yeah, it's very transformational.
mhm.
That's great.
And so they also provide these layers of insight. Sometimes I notice, and I'm sure you notice too, the horse, you get this first layer of the onion from the horse and they start licking and chewing, but they don't leave. And then you're like, oh no, what else? Right?
Oh yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I think I better go to the bathroom because you don't want to go to the next layer or whatever it is. Avoid it. But just like parables and stories, the cards, all the cards have these can support us as we unravel our peel our onion layer by layer.
Yeah.
Finding those aha moments as we keep moving on. Those are aha moments. Is that, do you guys know what that is in French? Aha moments?
Uh, yeah, we would say Eureka, probably.
Oh, Eureka. Well, that aha moment, it comes from Oprah. You know, Oprah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, on her show, she was, oh, it's an aha
Okay.
moment, right? And one time I explained that to a kid I was working with, and she said, I said, so did you have an aha moment with the horse? And she goes, what's an aha moment? And I said, it's when you know something that you didn't know before and you can't unknow it ever again. And she said, And she goes, that's like when you finally get it, that 100, the difference between 100 and 100th.
Huh.
And you go, aha, and you never can forget it. And I said, exactly, that's what it is. So kids are very helpful.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, so this is where we're going to start. We did
Okay,
this
so
overview.
let's start. So I take my cards, and that it
Yeah,
says start
I'll,
here.
right, start here. So today we're going to do that. And like I mentioned, we don't have to do this algorithm every time you use the cards, but this is just one example of that will cover a lot of implications. So
Okay.
we'll do the three fundamental questions. So you use the integration cards, they're numbered 1 through 8. And then you'll find a quiet place that you won't be interrupted, and you need a journal and a pen to take notes. And place the selected series of cards in front of you.
Yeah,
And
I
we'll
have
show that
this
in this.
beautiful notebook that
Oh,
you sent to me.
okay. All right, thanks. And then we'll place the other categories of cards underneath the row in front. I'll show that on the next slide. And then you just follow the prompts on the cards as you move along in the process. Now, I put my little lobster in here to remind me that this process can be kind of can be uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's this Rabbi Twersky that I saw a YouTube video of him years ago now, and he explained that how lobsters grow. When lobsters want to grow, they feel pressure in their old shell. And the pressure in that being uncomfortable is really a sign that they're ready to grow.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. And so they go to a place where it's safe to hide under a rock and hide from predatory fish in order to shed their old shell and grow a new one.
All right.
So if we
That's the
didn't feel
reason why I have a red shirt.
that's funny, yeah. And I don't know why this is going by itself. Let me make sure
Oh,
that I don't have it on automatic. Well, anyway, okay. So
huh.
right, that's why you have your lobster shirt on then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's a fun thing too to use with my clients and when they're feeling uncomfortable working out there with the horse, and I'm like, your lobster shell is getting a little tight, and then it's just again create something of a common way to look at things. It doesn't seem so taking things so personally. So your spread should look like this. This is the 2, 3, 4, and 5. We use the fifth card for both algorithms, and
Uh-huh.
then 6, 7, 8, and the 8 is used for both algorithms too. And then you have the other cards underneath and in piles like this.
Yep.
All righty.
Yes. Dualities is here. Yep. Yep. Perfect.
You ready?
Ready.
Okay. So I'm going to review with you the three fundamental questions. And this information is on the card too. So what wants to happen? And a lot of times we wake up in the morning and we're like, what am I supposed to do today? And then we're working out of our place of our ego, like ticking off a list. But if you wake up in the morning and say, what wants to happen today? It's in this place of receiving, which is the feminine actually too. And you shift from goal-oriented mindset to exploring potential and possibilities. Because if we set a goal, it's a something finite, but we don't always know maybe what really wants to happen. It goes far beyond that set goal, and that becomes this limitless outcome then.
Yeah.
And who is this asking me to be? This uncovers a version of ourself that is the potential inside of you that's calling to you. And you're recognizing that it is an opportunity to enter a new phase of personal growth and presence. And then we move to what is it asking me to do? Now is the place where you're going to be called to action. Okay. So the third topic then is impatience in certain situations.
Yes.
Okay. So there we go.
Here we go.
Technology is great sometimes, except for when it starts to have a mind of its own.
Yeah,
Okay.
beautiful.
So what wants to happen? Explore this music, what's going on with this inability to finish your musical projects.
Yeah.
What's the root of anger when it comes up, and impatience in certain situations.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what I want you to do is close your eyes.
Okay.
And you can either look at your journal or look at the screen, whatever is calling to you, and just be satisfied with yourself for identifying these three topics and listening to that. And as you close your eyes, get in this place of ease. Take a few deep breaths. And when you open your eyes, which one of these topics wants to be explored today?
Well, I think
Which one's standing out to you?
I
Which
think
one's
it's
going?
music actually. I could see my piano, so
It's music.
I think it's music. Yes,
Okay. All right. So music project completion.
grand piano. Is that how you call the big one?
Yep.
Grand.
Uh-huh.
That's yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. So we'll write that in your journal. What wants to happen?
Okay.
Musical project completion.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so write that first in your journal. Music, what wants to happen? Musical project completion.
Uh-huh. All right.
So now you move to the next card, which is fourth card, and this is the second question then.
Uh-huh.
Who is this asking me to be? And so write that down on your journal too, to really kind of solidify it in your awareness.
Okay.
So who do you have to be in order to complete your musical projects?
Uh-huh.
Elton
Yeah.
John or Beethoven? No, you have to be
Yeah.
yourself. Okay. So to explore this, we can look at the intelligences inside our body. We say we have three intelligences, and we'll look at information from your brain, your heart, and your belly in order to discern who you're being asked to be.
All right.
Now, oftentimes the emotions come up during this, and so you'll have those ready in case some emotions come up.
Yeah.
So this is the card 5, how to work through listening to your three intelligences.
Okay.
So first I'll just go through it and then I'll coach you through getting the information. The brain is our big rationalizer.
Yes.
The brain's job is to rationalize, interpret data coming in and going from the body, and directs our cognitive functioning.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And the heart is like a powerful radar, gathering information, environmental, all that we can see and not see. I don't remember the statistics about how much information our heart's gathering all the time. And also then it acts as a conductor between the brain and the gut as well. And it tells your belly if something's scary, we got to run, or whatever, those kind of things. And then your brain listens to that. And the belly then is the feeler of what's happening. And this is like when you have the gut feeling, and it communicates through the nervous system, sending signals and influences mood, emotions, and even heart function. So let me see and then we're going to take a note of the information that comes from each of your intelligences, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
We'll go back to what is it, who, and then discover who this is asking you to be.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead and get into that place of stillness again, place of introspection.
Yeah.
And we're going to start with your brain and listening to your brain. And so you intentionally just let your brain say all of the things that it wants to say about this musical topic. Leave your heart and your belly out of it. Just let your brain have a voice. And you
Okay.
can say it out loud if you want to, or I think it would be better to say it out loud. What's going on in your brain?
Yeah. Well, there's a voice that says that it's not reasonable because music is not a real job. It's not a real job.
Okay.
And there is also a voice that says yes, but it's like mathematics. It's mathematics. It's the law of harmony, and yeah, and so music is something related to numbers and vibrations and mathematics. So it's,
So then your brain thinks it has validity then,
yes,
because it's math.
because it's math. Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, write that down. That's so perfect, isn't it, huh?
Okay. So
Are you surprised about that?
yeah, that's not something I've been thinking about actually.
Okay. So write down, we wrote that down, made a note.
Okay.
Make note there. It's not a real job,
And it's not a real job.
but it's like math, so maybe it's okay.
Right. Yeah.
So now we're going to shift your awareness down to your heart. So close your eyes, put your hands on your heart, and just kind of imagine you're breathing in and out of your heart. And I always find it helpful to just tell my brain, just be quiet. You already talked. Let your heart speak. What does your heart have to say about this musical topic?
Uh, yeah, it says something like music never stops.
Music
Music
never
of life never stops.
Okay. And so how does this relate to the issue at hand? What is it?
I
What is
I don't know.
let's go and check some more. Let's go listen a little more. Let's
Okay.
listen to to what your heart has to say about why it's difficult
Uh,
to finish your musical projects.
yeah. Music never stops. It's the flow of life, and yeah, you can't finish because it never stops.
Oh, and so go a little deeper. What's underneath that?
Uh, if you, it says, if you would stop something, it would uh, it would interfere with the flow of life. So it shouldn't stop. It shouldn't be finished. It should flow and flow and flow and never be finished.
Okay.
Okay.
So write that down.
Okay.
What are you writing down then? What is your
Never be finished. Flow of life. Not to interrupt.
hmm. So finishing would interrupt the
Yeah.
flow of life.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And let's go back to your brain again. And your brain says, what did you finish? What did you write then?
So it's not a real job, but
Uh-huh.
it's it's math and it's vibration. So when it's math, it's okay.
Okay. So now let's move down to your belly. So your belly
Yeah.
is the part that is going to look at the feelings behind this. So
Right.
take a deep breath, close your eyes, put your hands on your belly and breathing into your belly. What does your belly have to say about this? What are the feelings associated with not finishing musical projects?
It's not very clear actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to listen to the feelings and the emotions. Yes, there is something with the structure of the musical pieces, but I don't know exactly what. But it says that there should be more structure in order that the pieces are more balanced and could be finished if it
Hmm.
if it would be the adequate structure. Like,
So what could, since you're working with your belly, is there a word that you could replace with structure? Do it in French first.
uh,
What is missing from the piece in order for it to be finished? But don't use the word structure.
uh, um, balance.
And what does the piece need in order to be balanced?
Like in a building, when a building is very well balanced, and when it's based on the golden number, and it's beautiful from every point of view.
Okay,
So
so let's say
kind
you're
of balance.
listening. What's a favorite musical piece that you enjoy listening to? What's your
Huh. Or the one of the piece I really love is Jacob Collier, "World Oh World." It's a choral. It's beautiful. It's
Okay.
absolutely beautiful.
So let's say you're looking at the music on the score, only in writing.
Yeah,
Okay, on the paper.
yeah,
Okay. And you can hear it in your head because you've heard it many times.
yeah.
But what's missing?
You mean on this
If you
piece?
if you're
Or,
only listen, oh, if you only look at it, if you only look at it as a score on
oh,
paper, what's
okay.
missing? What does it need to be balanced and complete?
Yeah, better skill. So better skill.
How about the the instruments or the musicians?
Well, I would say it needs a good skill to well understand the harmony of the piece.
Uh-huh. And when you listen to music like that and there's a lot of emotion put into the
Yeah,
music,
yeah.
or there's no emotion put, say it's made by a computer instead of a human being. The music is made by a computer instead of a human being. How different would it sound?
Well, well, the emotion is depending on the composer, I believe.
Uh-huh.
But
The musician. Uh-huh.
and the musician, yes,
Mm-hmm.
the person who
So
is.
that's a responsibility of the musician to put emotion into the score.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that could be the balance that your music's looking for?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's more something to feel the inner balance in my own being, and
Uh-huh.
to dare to project this inner balance on a piece, on a musical piece. It's more
Oh, perfect.
kind of thing.
Okay, write that down.
Not to be shy, but to
Not to be
dare.
shy, to be vulnerable. It has to be super
Oh
vulnerable to
yeah,
put up,
yeah, absolutely. Yes, yes.
that's the
That's
big
the
V
word.
word. The
That's
four
the
letter
word.
the four-letter word of vulnerability.
Ha, yeah, dare to be vulnerable. And
Ah,
yes, absolutely.
so you see, so now look at these things. Now you have your brain.
Yep.
It's not a real job, but it's like math and vibration, so that's okay. Your
Yeah.
heart's saying finishing it would interrupt the flow of life. Well, that's kind of interesting because here in the belly, you heard dare to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And so now look at what the heart said again. Does it make more sense?
Yes, probably.
Go
Yes.
and check back in with your heart now that it has some more information from your belly.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, there is a relation between the heart and the belly that the interruption of the flow of life would depend on the structure of the piece. So if the structure was perfectly balanced, it would not interrupt the flow of life, I guess.
Okay. And so then who is this asking you to be?
Yeah, it's asking me to be a bigger person than I am. There is something with
No, come on.
vulnerability. Definitely.
Vulnerable. It's asking you to be vulnerable.
Sorry?
Asking you to be vulnerable.
Yes, it's asking me to be vulnerable. Yes.
Isn't that funny how that just shows up no matter how old we are?
Yeah.
Um, so you know about Brene Brown, right? Brene Brown?
Yes, I know about
Yeah.
her. Yes.
And she has a TED talk on, actually it's on joy, it's not on vulnerability.
Uh-huh.
And vulnerable, did I even spell that right? Um, anyway, okay. So um, she found out, as you remember, the more vulnerable we are in life, the more joy we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look how music brings us all so much joy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And once you put that music that you've created from the deep inside of you and you put it out into the world,
Mm.
what are you're adding to the greater collective of bringing joy, maybe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So we have that. So what wants to happen is finish my music projects. Who's this asking me to be is vulnerable.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's okay. We put that there. Now we can move into what is this asking me to do? And this is
Uh-huh.
the action part. Now, how am I supposed to do it? Right.
Yes.
And we look at all the categories to discern and distill out what it is that you're being asked to do.
Right.
The first part of that is process, and that's picking the emotion. So go ahead and use the emotion cards.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay. Use the emotion cards to pick out, you already know the card probably.
Well, I know the cards. It's the first one. It's vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
It's the first
Right.
one of the deck, actually.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. So vulnerability. So what is the message behind vulnerability? Or just read the card to us. Tell us about
The
the card.
message is something significant is about to be changed, or is about to change, or to be revealed. There is a threat to your comfort zone, or something is pushing the edge of what you're used to. That's the message.
And that's why you have your lobster shirt on today, Sylvan.
Yes, that's the reason why.
Okay. And what are the benefits of vulnerability?
And the yeah the
That's at
benefit
the very top. Mhm.
is the scope of awareness and joy expands. More joy, more awareness, and the relationship is getting more, is getting
Yeah.
stronger, and limitless potential.
Yes.
And music definitely has a limitless potential. That's
Right.
what
And
I
so
believe.
what relationship is growing by you stepping
Uh,
into vulnerability?
I I think there is a relationship with yeah, well, there is a relationship with the inner structure of the piece, and
Uh-huh.
also with fellow musicians.
And how about also with the guy in the red shirt?
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Yeah, it gets different.
Okay.
And joy, yes, joy for sure.
Joy. So go ahead and pull up joy
Yeah,
and the card of joy. So we'll put
just the
vulnerability and
thought of
joy.
joy.
Uh-huh. And so how do we bring joy? What is the main message of joy?
Main message, a feeling of expansion, communion, inspiration, radiance, and bliss.
Uh-huh.
and connection to something bigger than myself.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
And so then you can ask the question, what do I feel connected to? What is inspiring me? What
Huh.
changed what changed in you to allow joy to enter your life?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
the,
And so joy gets obstructed when we're unwilling to feel the other emotion. So by even acknowledging this vulnerability, you suddenly felt joy. It's all you had to do.
yeah.
And it's fleeting. Joy can be fleeting, and but if we were in this joyful place all the time, we'd have to go on meds or something, you know. So just like every other emotion, we move in and out of that too. All right. So the next part is the shifting process, right? So the
Yes.
shift involves the archetype cards and the herd dynamic cards. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
related to what is being asked of you, which archetype fits it,
Yeah.
fits this.
Archetypes and herd. Yes.
Uh-huh. So this is the story behind it and the energy behind
Uh-huh.
this.
Yeah. And so archetypes. Should I take one of the cards?
Yeah, which one resonates with you when you look at
Which
them?
one resonates with me?
Just read the first statement on the top of each
Yes.
one. And ideally, when you step into this, finishing your musical pieces,
Yeah,
which one of them?
I think it's co-creator.
Exactly, that's the one I pulled. Yeah,
That's the one you
uh-huh.
pull.
Yeah,
Co-creator.
yep. And go ahead and read that out loud. The
Embodies
co-create.
the essence of visionary leadership through collaborative, innovative, and creative partnership.
Uh-huh. And in this case, who are you partnering with?
Well, with music in general, with harmony, and with fellow musicians, definitely,
And with the guy in the red shirt.
and with the guy in the red.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, with yourself, with that soulful part of you, right? And
right,
so
absolutely.
so in the herd dynamics, which energy?
Uh, wait a moment. Well, I know that. Well, I'm reading the leader card,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
I'm reading
Yeah.
the connector. Well,
Okay.
connector because connector has a holistic viewpoint,
Right.
something that resonates with me.
Mm-hmm. And music has a way of doing that, doesn't it? It crosses species and organizations. It
Yeah,
seeks the potential, activates potential,
yes,
connects us to the ecosystem, and it's connected to the universal picture.
yeah,
And it brings in the faith and trust that what's coming into me is what I'm meant to hear.
definitely, yes, yeah, yeah.
And
Music,
then,
the language of music is universal, definitely.
right,
Yeah,
exactly. And what else is universal besides music? Emotion.
emotion, yes,
Yeah, and emotions are the emotion behind the song and the music is what touches people to their core, right?
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that is we have those two guys, put those on top. And
Okay,
now the next piece is aligning now, is kind of pulling this all together to help to lay
okay,
down the action, right?
all
So now
right.
you use the duality card. The
That's
duality card,
duality and the hermetic principles.
uh-huh,
Yep,
our favorite ones of the day.
and duality is. Wait a moment. Uh, there is something. Huh. I like all of them actually. But there was something with light and dark.
Okay.
there is something with light of dark, and there was something with lens and filter.
Okay.
So I don't know which card is. And there is definitely something with apathy and passion.
Right,
I think
right. So,
that's the most, it describes with the most accuracy what is happening. Apathy
uh,
and passion.
yeah, maybe because it almost at the beginning you were talking when you brought it up as your
Yeah.
first topic, you were just kind of getting like, oh my God, this is coming up again, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even when it showed up for you, when you opened your eyes, you were just like, there it is again,
Yeah.
like bringing you out of apathy, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So, so
apathy, lack of interest, feeling of detachment, and passion, intense enthusiasm, dedication, and a strong emotional connection to an interest. Yeah, so something balanced between apathy and passion.
uh-huh. So when we're working in dualities, if you are now at this place of apathy, maybe, let's say, and where do you need to meet in the middle, or do you think you just need to go all the way to the other polarity?
I I think I
Passion.
would need to go all the way to the other polarity, and
Yep,
that's something
right.
with music. You can go from
You can't be halfway, can you? If you're making a
oh,
musical piece, you have to be solid in the passion of it.
yes,
And what happens when you're solidly in that passion? What happens to everything else?
well,
What happens to the other aspects of your responsibilities?
huh, yeah, well, that's so.
They
Sometimes
can't.
it's possible to forget everything else when you are passionate.
Uh-huh. And so just looking at your other two topics, which had to be revolved around being annoyed and angry when other
Right.
things show
Right.
up,
Yeah, it
maybe
makes sense.
those really go back to this whole music.
Yeah, it makes sense.
They're
It,
interrupting you of what you're
yeah,
really passionate about.
yeah, definitely. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. So which principle?
Oh, which of the Hermetic principle? That's
Yeah.
the last one. Uh, well, principle of rhythm, of course.
Uh-huh.
Principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall. The
Mm-hmm.
pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Yeah, so something with rhythm and probably with the principle of vibration too, because music is vibration essentially. The principle indicates that everything in the universe is in motion, vibrating at various frequencies. This includes both physical and non-physical environments. So, yeah,
Hmm.
probably, I don't know, something
So
with the,
you're familiar with the Native American concept of the medicine wheel, right?
yes, I do.
Yes. And so in the medicine wheel, I went on a vision quest with that was the foundation of the vision quest as well. And when how I was understanding it was we there are the 4 points on a compass that we go through these cycles or rhythms in our life.
Yeah,
And and as we move through life, when we go back to the east, I don't know if that's the framework that you were using, but when you go back to the east, you die and then you come back in as a child.
yes, yes, there are many different processes.
Right. And going around. So that in that philosophical concept.
Mhm.
So I've noticed as I've gotten older and my life has changed and what I'm working on has changed and transformed so many times during my life in these rhythmic cycles. And
Uh-huh.
as I'm older now, I recognizing it maybe as 4 seasons as well.
Yeah.
And so we have to let go of those things that were in the old rhythm in order to step fully into the new rhythm.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure.
And then I think as you get older, you realize there isn't much time left.
Well, yes, well,
Yeah.
another transition anyway, for sure.
Yeah, right. So it's a good representation
Yeah.
of this newness that wants to come into your life, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so your so what is this? Then if we summarize, you've gone through this information really quickly. You probably need some time to process things, but so what is the emotion, right? That came through?
Oh, it's enthusiasm.
Huh? It's vulnerability, right? But
The first one was
enjoy.
vulnerability. Yes.
Enjoy, yeah. The archetypes that came up, co-creator. Yeah.
Co-creator. That
Yeah.
was the archetype. Yes.
And her dynamic leader and connector.
Was connector. Yes.
Yeah. Or connector. Okay. Duality, apathy, and passion.
Yep. Apathy of passion. Yes.
And then the principle of rhythm and vibration.
Yep.
So what is this asking you to do?
Well, certainly to stay in a feeling of joy and and to co-create. There is something with connection, definitely.
So this is the actionable thing. So what is it asking you to do? What wants to happen is musical project completion.
Well,
It's
probably
asking you to be vulnerable. And so what is it asking you to do?
to work with other people, probably, which and I could connect with them, and
Uh-huh.
it would involve a process of co-creation. And maybe that's the reason why I get stopped at a point, and yeah,
Because or maybe to step into vulnerability. Maybe
step
that's
into
all.
vulnerability of yeah, asking someone else,
Uh-huh.
definitely.
So however that might look.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
You don't know you don't have to know what that looks like yet. But if you just so what do you think? I wrote down here, I said to work with others
Yeah,
to co-create music
yeah.
or and step into vulnerability or just
Or
what do you think? I don't want
well,
to put words in your mouth.
you were freeze. I'm sorry. Uh, you're freezed again. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Uh, okay, now you're back.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You're getting a big storm?
Yeah, yes, we got
Yeah.
we got some lightnings and storms.
Yeah. So what do you think is both of these statements that you made, or do you think it's one more than the other, or both?
Work with others to co-create. Well, the first one is step into vulnerability,
Okay.
and then the consequence would be to ask other people. Work with me, co-create. That would be
Okay. Like this.
yeah,
Okay. So write that in your book.
yeah.
Okay. So what wants to happen is I'll write it here for well everyone can see that. And then you just review these things. What wants to happen too.
Yeah. Be creative.
And who's this asking you to be?
Yeah.
Whoops. I have to do it. Vulnerable. And what is it asking you to do? What was just on the last slide, which is
Step into vulnerability.
okay. And ask others.
And ask others. Yes. to enter a process of co-creation.
Okay. Wow. It seems easy now, doesn't it?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
It's easier, it flows much easier, absolutely.
What insights have you gained by going through this process and excuse me, and teasing out all of this three simple statements?
Yeah, it makes things more clear, and also it gives impulse to movement. And
Uh-huh.
that's I think the beauty of this process.
Mm-hmm. And of course, if we were with horses, once you got it, they would be all gone now. They would
Yeah,
be like, okay, thank God that human finally understood. And then they'd be eating now, out eating.
yeah,
Um, okay, so the last part of the process is this integrate card, which is card number 8. And
uh-huh.
so you know, as you work through this card, you can work through this card yourself, and
Okay,
you start to make commitments
okay,
to
okay.
yourself, writing down to
All right.
bring what's come into your awareness. And this is called like the resolution of the topic. And
Okay. Yeah.
and then you give yourself a commitment to the future.
Yes.
And this is where you set goals. What can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? To start and imagining and manifesting really this music being
Yeah.
completed.
Yep.
And that's under your power to do. And one of the things that always comes up for me is that I think it has to be perfect before I move on to something else or I put it out there, but it's never going to be perfect.
Oh.
And so that's the food. I think perfection is the food of self-limiting beliefs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And this
Very
growth
well
always,
put.
yeah, the growth is coming from their aches and pains and that pressure in the red shirt, in your
Yeah.
red shell, and your red hat. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And that can be messy. One of but the lobster does know where to go to shed his shell. He just doesn't do it out in the open so something can eat him.
Yes, it was a wonderful example, and actually it works. It's a beautiful process, and yeah, thank you for introducing me to this transformational uh, path process, and I really like it that it mixes, it integrates the emotion and archetypes and the herd dynamic and the polarities and
Mm-hmm.
also the old hermetic principles. So that's
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful. Thank you so much, Debbie, for introducing us to those cards.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on and everybody that's watching to holding space for Sylvain as he through his process. That was a great example.
Well, thank you, Debbie.
Bye.
Goodbye. Je voulais aussi vous donner des éléments pratiques pour ce sommet en ligne. Donc c'est un sommet qui est gratuit sur simple inscription comme membre de la communauté Cheval en conscience. Vous avez le lien juste en dessous. Une communauté où il y a déjà plus de 1500 membres. Et donc vous avez la possibilité de regarder gratuitement les interviews le jour de leur diffusion. Ou alors, si vous voulez les regarder plus confortablement au moment où vous le voulez, vous avez la possibilité d'acheter un pack replay. Donc pack replay pour le montant de 97 euros. Vous avez accès à plus d'une trentaine d'interviews, plus de 35 heures d'interviews sur les chevaux médiateurs, sur les chevaux guérisseurs, avec des témoignages exclusifs de la part des nations amérindiennes, du chamanisme. On a interviewé donc cette chamane de Sibérie, et également des professionnels du cheval en France qui parlent de leur métier, comment est-ce que le cheval peut être intégré dans des pratiques de psychologie, comment il peut être intégré avec la théorie polyvagale. Donc tout ça, vous avez la possibilité d'acheter un pack replay pour regarder confortablement les interviews. Et je voulais aussi vous dire qu'une part des bénéfices de la vente de ces packs replay sera reversée à l'association Equidolce. C'est une association qui est vraiment chouette, vraiment un beau travail de cette association qui crée un refuge pour les chevaux. Et on a vraiment à cœur de soutenir, d'aider cette association Equidolce avec Cheval en conscience. Inscrivez-vous, c'est gratuit, n'hésitez pas et vous aurez accès gratuitement à toutes nos interviews. Voilà les amis, à bientôt.
Thank you.